I'm Katrina, and this is Sew & Tare, and today I want to talk to you about different canning lids. If you buy jars that are new, you're going to buy jars with lids. They're going to have lids on them already. So this is what a typical lid looks like, a metal lid. You can see it has a little tiny circle in the middle. That is a button. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that moves in and out. This gets pressed down, or it gets sucked in when your jars seal, and that's how you know. And that's how there's the typical ping. You hear about canners ping. That's P-I-N-G. That is when these seal. It makes a sound. If you think of the old Snapple caps, you can pop them. Like, it's that sound. It has a place for the date, which I kind of think is silly because I end up just writing on wherever. Some people are nice and tidy and put the date in there and the, you know, what it is up here. I just choose a spot and there you go. So these are one-time use, and I honestly use them more. I use them and then I can use them again for dry goods, because for dry goods it doesn't matter if air gets in there, you know, oops, the seal broke, air got in there, oh well. So I will use these for dry goods, but they are one-time use for actual canning. So if I'm vacuum sealing, you know, some dried mint, I'll use a used lid that's in good condition. But this has a coated underside, and then this area here is gummy, and that is where that's where the jar will connect to, and then suck in the lid, and it will seal. So these are pretty simple. They're pretty typical. I use Ball and Kerr. They were the same brand. They're the same maker. Purr is another brand I've used. I have not used 4 jars, but I trust Lisa over at Sutton's Days to, she loves them, so I figure, you know, those are good too. There are some metal lids out there that are not great and don't seal well, don't hold a seal. So I'm not going to go through any of that because I don't have experience with that. I've just heard these stories and seen these things. So you can go to another channel if you want to look for, like, what are the cheap ones that you can buy. Now, if you want to use your jars more than once, which you should, then you're going to need more lids. And lids come in boxes of lids only or lids and bands. So it's either going to be lids only or lids and bands. And so if you already have the bands, you don't need new bands. So that's something that people make a mistake of buying again. Once you have them, you have them. These are a tool. They're not part of, you know, once you use them, they're good. They're still good to use as long as they're round and they're not bent up. So like this one's a little old. You can kind of see on the underside it's a little tarnished, but it still works. So that is the metal lids, and this is what people have been using for years, and they work. So nothing bad against them at all. They work just fine. Now, what I like to do is I like to use a reusable lid. There are 2 companies that I know about that make the reusable lid. One is Harvest Guard, which is what I use, honestly, just because it was cheaper at the time. And the other one is Tare. So this is a 2-part lid, and you can see, maybe you can see, they have their little logo in the middle. I wish that logo was smaller because it means that you have to write on the outside, not across the middle. So I don't know if they're gonna ever change that or not. But these are really good lids. So that would be my only negative, is that I would like to write here instead of here. But it works just fine. There's enough room to write everything you need to write. So what is this? This lid will last you forever. It is food safe. It is all those good things. It'll last you forever. The gasket that comes with it will last many times. And all it does is it has this little lip, and you put the gasket here, and that will be the same as this gummy layer in the metal lid. So it'll suction, everything will work, it'll be all good. But there are a few learning things that you need, especially if you're used to using these ones. There's a few learning curve items that you need to know about with these ones. So I'm going to can the rest of my quail. If you didn't see that most recent video, I'll put the link up here on the how-to. This is not a how to can quail, this is how to use the lids. So if you want to know how to can quail or poultry or rabbit with bones, there's your link. And all right, so these cost more. So these cost more than these. These are single use. These are basically lifetime, with the potential of replacing some of the gaskets. I haven't even replaced the gaskets yet, so they can be used many, many times before they go bad. And I think part of that is how you store it. So think about how you would store like a rubber band, you know, and they do get old. I would imagine it would be similar with this. You don't want to leave them out in the sun, you know, don't leave them in that room that heats up a lot or freezes or something like that. So that's just that's not the company's, that's my interpretation of that. So yeah, customer service for Harvest Guard is really, really, really great. And when I started using them, most jars were sealing and they were doing really good, and I really liked them. But some of the jars were coming unsealed. And so I contacted them and said, okay, what's the story here, you know? And what was happening is I have hard water. So if I have hard water, that means I have a lot of calcium in the water and other minerals as well. So what she told me is to add vinegar to the water when you heat these up. And ever since then, I've not had a seal go bad. So that is the secret if you have hard water, is to put a little bit of vinegar in the water when you heat these up. Now, what happens before you use the lids? Do you have to heat them up? Okay. Ball says not anymore. I still do it. You used to have to heat them up, you know, for a certain amount of time. I still do it because it softens that gummy layer. Whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know. It's not a bad thing to do it, but they say it's not necessary. So now it would be more necessary if you're canning something that's like a water bath canning for 5 minutes. You want to at least have things sterilized. So that would be another reason why you would want to boil for 10 minutes. If you're a higher elevation than me, you may have to boil longer than that for sterilization. So whatever your sterilization is for boiling for your elevation, because that does change, then that's what you would boil it for. Same thing goes for jars. If you're doing something that only requires 5 minutes in the water bath, boil your jars for 10 minutes and then put your stuff in and then process. So there you go. Okay. So when you get these, you want to wash them well. And when these gaskets come, they have a little powder on them, and that powder needs to be washed off because that can also, you know, hinder the seal. So once they're washed, they're good. You know, you can wash them regularly after that point. Also, these can go in the dishwasher, which is nice. And if you're going to use these, no matter if it's hot or cold pack, for pressure canning, water bath canning, you are supposed to still heat these up. Still go through that 10-minute boil, or longer if you're above, I don't know what elevation. You guys should know this. If you don't know this, look up how long you should boil something to sterilize it. It's 10 minutes for 1,000 feet and below at least. Anyway. National Center for Home Food Preservation, linked in the description. You will go there and find out all those things. All right, so I like these. I like to use them because they're reusable. Something I did find when I was using this kind is that I had just gotten this little jar opener on Amazon. I'll put a link in below if you like. These work really well for the metal lids. They're a little more frustrating for these ones. So I originally didn't buy a jar opener from them, but I ended up doing it. It was like $4 and something, which seemed a little high, but it's so worth it. So they have these little keychain openers, and it is specific to their lids, so that it's, you know, it has the thickness involved and all of that. And you put this, let's say it's on a jar, the gasket's there, you put this between the gasket and the lid, and just pry up a little bit, and it won't damage this at all. So okay, I think that's all the behind the scenes, the advice, and now I'm going to actually show you how to do these. There's two things you need to know about Harvest Guard that is different than the metal lids with regards to actually processing. One is how you put the lid on, and two is what you do after they come out of the canner. So I'm going to show you those two things, and you will then know them. All right, let's start on this next batch of quail. We're getting this water heated up, and what I like to do is I like to put the gaskets on these, and I drop them into the water. And having tongs, soft tongs, is really good idea to get them out. Now for these ones, I just drop them in, and they can stick to each other, so you have to be careful with that. Looks like I need more water. So they can stick to each other. For getting the metal ones out, I like to use this little stick with a magnet. These come in canning kits all the time, and you just, you know, pick it up like that. So those are the two tools I use for this. And we're just going to bring this to a boil and boil for 10 minutes. All right, no matter which kind of lid you have, you always want to put some white vinegar on a cloth and run that along the outside. Always check for chips. You should probably do that before you fill the jars, but this is also a good time to do that again. And the vinegar just takes away the fats, the oils, the junk, anything that's on there will come off. And now let's get to the lids. All right, for the metal lids, I just pick them up. Make sure you only have one. If you have two, just pop it off. And what you do with this is just put it on just like that. Okay? So nice and easy. Okay? That's all nice and easy. Make sure they're centered. They fit pretty good. Now for these other ones, I like to scoop them out of the water. You can see this is separate, but it's on there together. And I just take it like this and turn it. And you're gonna want to make sure that the gasket is centered on the glass part of the jar. You can also just put it like this, but I like to just make sure that the gasket doesn't get kind of tucked inside. So sometimes when it boils, it doesn't stay there. You just put it back. This is hot, but it's okay. Now you can see some of these have lettering. So like this one has a lot of lettering on it, and that comes off somewhat when you boil it and stuff, but I use a Sharpie. If you want that to go away, you can scrub at it, or you can use alcohol. To be honest, I know what's going to be in these jars, and where I put it, it doesn't. I mean, I could just not label them, which is not a good idea, but I tend to label over that writing, and that will give it. That'll just be fine. So these are all centered. Next up, for the metal ones, you just hold the jar, and sometimes you have to put the band backwards so that you get on the thread. Once you're on the thread, just go to fingertip tight. We're not cranking on it. We're just going to fingertip tight. Okay? So these are on like that, and then just a little bit more. If you under tighten, you're not going to get a seal, and it's going to probably siphon out. If you over tighten, you're going to get a bulge, and it's not going to seal correctly. So, all right, so those are all ready to be put in. Now the harvest guard ones, the reusable ones, what we're going to do is we're going to take a band and put our finger here, press down with one finger, and put them to the same finger tight, okay? And if you've already lined it up, then you don't have to do much else. If you haven't lined it up, you can line it up now, you know, slightly off center or whatever. And I did add vinegar to this water. I guess I didn't show that. I don't think I showed that. But I did add vinegar to the water. It's just like a couple tablespoons for all this. And there we go. So we're going to can this, and when we come back, I'll show you what we do. Alright, we're taking these out. The metal lids we just take out, and we don't need to do anything with. If you hear those pops are good signs. It means that the metal lids are sealing. Now, as for the harvest guard lids, these do need special treatment. And so what we're going to do is pick it up with a cloth, and we're going to pick it up on the jar, not on the band, on the jar. So we're going to pick it up from the jar onto a hot pad, and we're going to crank down on it. Okay? Again, you do not need to do this for the metal lids. This is only for the harvest guard or Tare lids. I'm guessing Tare. I haven't actually had those. Now, they used to have it that you wait 7 to 10 minutes or 5 to 7 minutes or something like that before you do this, after you've taken them out, and they've since changed that. So some of my older videos will say to wait, and that, I mean, mostly works. But their newer advice is to do this right away. So we're gonna wait 12 to 24 hours. We're not gonna move the jars, and then after we're done with it, we will take off the bands, and we'll be able to lift the jars from the lids themselves. And you've seen this in other videos. I'm not going to demonstrate it in this video. This is mostly about how to use the lids. But those are the differences. I hope that you could see kind of how you do it differently. If you have questions, go ahead and put it in the comments. And then also, if you're just starting out and you're not really familiar with this, you can always just can water. That way you don't mess up with any, you don't mess with any food. You're not worried about wasting any food. You can literally just can water, and it will be sterilized. So, like if you're making, a beef broth or something, follow instructions for beef broth, but just use water. And that way you won't be as nervous to get it right. And then likely you'll get it right. And then when you actually go to do the beef broth, you can then do that more confidently. So that's my advice, is practice with water if you have doubts, if you have concerns. And then also you can use both kinds of lids. You can use one type of lid, you can use other type of lid. I like to use the Harvest Guard lids because, again, they are reusable and they last a very, very, very long time. So I don't have to keep worrying about buying lids. I don't have to worry about lid shortages. I don't have to worry about, oh, I need this now, let me go to the store, and there's nothing on the shelf because canning season. Another tip is to buy these things outside of canning season. So I can meat, so canning season's year round, but most places will increase their supply during the spring into summer, and then they won't, that's usually when most people buy it. And so if you buy it when other people aren't buying it, then you'll for sure get what you need for the future. So that's my advice, is to get the materials you need before you need them. Get extra because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to have a bumper crop or anything like that. So yeah, and then eat through your jars. So I hope that was helpful for you to see how the differences between how to use a metal lid and how to use a reusable lid, and that you now you know your choices and you can make your decisions, and a happy canning to you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you are not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification to select all so you get all the videos. We have lots of videos on this channel, canning and animal and garden and cooking related, so homesteading related, that everyone I think will enjoy. And share this with someone. Share this with someone who's nervous about getting into canning, who maybe they don't like the idea of a single-use lid, you know, well, how can I do it, you know, more efficiently. Yeah, and go from there. So thank you for watching and have a great day.